A question came up in the comments section that hasn't come up in a while. And the question was, what if it's a first date and the Filipina you're talking to says, oh, do you mind if I bring along? And then it could be her friend or roommate or cousin or aunt. What is the proper way to respond to that? Now, I've heard other guys respond to this, and they just flat out say, well, never allow someone else to come along. But again, that's like a baby with the bathwater response. The actual answer depends on what type of dating are you doing when you're talking to this Filipina. Now, if you're just dating for fun, if you just contacted a really pretty girl on one of the dating sites and your only intention, you're not looking for a relationship. If your only intention is you want to meet up, have some light lunch or something, invite her to your hotel or condo, have some fun. If that is your only objective, then the answer is no. Do not let her bring someone along. Because during the small amount of chatting that you're going to do prior to meeting up with them, and just to review, this is something you do when you're actually in the Philippines. This does not apply if you're chatting Filipinas from thousands of miles away. Because if you're just in it for recreational dating, the goal is to chat as little as possible and then transition into meeting in person. So the way this should typically go is you chat maybe for 30 minutes. And then you say, okay, well, hey, let's meet tomorrow, or if it's early in the day, if it's 11 in the morning, transition to, hey, I'm going to get lunch at 2 o'clock. You want to meet me at the such and such Jollibee, or do you want to meet me for coffee over at Bo's Coffee or Starbucks? You don't want to waste a whole lot of time chatting. But in that small amount of chatting, you do want to make it clear that you're not looking for a relationship. And if they are okay with that, which many are, well, now you have the same ground rules for meeting up. So if you tell a Filipina in your chat prior to meeting, I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, I am looking for some companionship. If you and I can hit it off, then that would be great. Let's meet up for some lunch or something and see how it goes. Now, in this sort of scenario, if you get there and it turns out, yeah, you do like her and you do want to spend time with her, having a third wheel tag along is totally going to kibosh your transition to go from the meetup to inviting her to your place. Because you don't need to wait a day and invite her on another date and then ask her to your place. If everything looks copacetic when you first meet, you can finish up that coffee date with any excuse to come to your place. They are not going to ask. They're waiting for you to invite them. Again, you both met there with the understanding that neither of you is expecting a relationship. You're both there dating for fun. And I am not kidding. It really doesn't matter what your reason is when you invite them to your place. You could say, I'll give you a ride home, but I need to stop at my place first. And if they're just there for fun, they'll say, okay. You can say, I have a swimming pool at my condo. You want to see it? Now, they didn't even bring a bikini, but again, they just need an excuse to tell their friends, well, I only went there to see his pool and then, stuff happened. Women want to have that position of plausible deniability. They want to be able to sell the story to their friends. I didn't go there expecting something to happen. I'm not that kind of girl. But, he invited me to look at his pool and, well, stuff just happened and he's the one. Blame him. It's all a charade, but you gotta go along with it. And I put this to the test. I even one time told a Filipina that I had, again, just barely had coffee with. She said, oh, where do you live? It's a general enough question that she can say, well, I didn't have any bad intent. But she just goes, oh, well, where do you live? I said, well, right now I'm staying at such and such condos. And right away I followed that up with, you want to see my furniture? It was the dumbest thing that I could come up with because I wanted to see if she would question, why would I want to look at your furniture? And yet, without skipping a beat, she said, yeah, that would be cool. And off we went. So back to the question, if you're just setting up a date with the intention that this is not serious, this is just recreational dating, you're in it for fun, she's in it for fun, if at the last minute or even right away before the meetup, and I've had women do this, even texting me 10 minutes before we arrive. Oh, I've got my friend with me. She's in the jeepney. It's okay if she's there, right? In these situations with recreational dating, the answer is no. I want to meet you. I want to talk to you. I don't want to meet your friend. So if you can't come on your own, then I'm just going to have to cancel. Now, at that point, she's got to decide whether she's going to fish or cut bait. Because if the only reason she agreed to meet with you is so that her and her friend could maybe get a freebie meal at a nice restaurant, she's not somebody you want to deal with anyway. Now, if she cuts her friend loose and says, oh, okay, I was just asking, and then she meets you there, just her on her own, well, now you're back in business. Now, in the learning curve of my dating time, I've tried it both ways. Now, there is the small chance that you'll have the situation I had, but I only had it happen one time since 2012. Same scenario. I told her, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm looking for someone to hang with that's cool. She agreed, and I said, tell you what, we'll go over to Chow King. For those of you who don't know, Chow King is a very inexpensive pseudo-Chinese franchise. I mean, you can get a meal there for like $4. It's nothing fancy. So during our chat, because we did meet, like it wasn't even like 3 hours later, during our chat, she said, well, I have this cousin. Do you mind if she comes along? And I thought, sure, why not? Now, this turned out to be a good situation because what was really going on is that the Filipina I was talking to really wasn't into it with me. But behind the scenes, she had shown my profile on Facebook to her cousin, and her cousin was interested. So I arrive at the Chow King, I meet with her and the cousin, we order a little bit of food. I mean, for the three of us, it was like less than $15. And as we're talking, it becomes pretty obvious she's really kind of putting her cousin in the forefront. So after we finished eating, I said to her, the one I had chatted, well, if you've got some free time and maybe your cousin could hang out at the mall or something, we could go over to my place and, I could show you my pool. And the response ended up being a surprise to me. She said, oh, I have to go some places, but my cousin, she's got the afternoon completely free. The cousin turns to me and says, yeah, I want to go. I want to check out your pool. And so I ended up taking the cousin home. But that is a rare situation. And I only fell into it by accident. So general rule, if you're just recreationally dating, do not let a third wheel tag along. Now, the completely other situation, which requires the opposite answer, is if you're dating with the purpose, as I've talked about before, stage 2, you're dating with the purpose of finding a good relationship. You want to build a future with somebody, but first you got to find somebody that is not crazy, somebody that you would want to spend your time with. So when you're dating with the intention of finding a relationship, and they say, and again, we're talking about the first date. If you find somebody interesting for a relationship and she says, well, I want to meet you. Can I bring my sister? Can I bring my friend? Can I bring my mom? Can I bring my aunt? I've had all of these tag along, not all at the same time. In this instance, this is a good sign. And you definitely want to open the door and say, yeah, bring her along. But limit it, tell her just one person, not the whole family, just your aunt, your cousin, whatever it is. It's okay if you bring that one person. In fact, the first date that I had with V, who is now my wife, this was 4 years ago, our very first date, she asked, if she could bring her mother along. And I enthusiastically said, yeah, that would be great. Tell your mom we're going to spend the whole day. We're going to hang out. We'll go to a movie and stuff. So I said, yeah, bring your mother along. Because I was looking for a relationship, and the rest was history. Within 10 minutes, her and I are chatting so much, and I take a glance over at the mother. I've totally got her approval. In fact, she's taking pictures, and I can tell she's just thinking to herself, yep, this is going to be my new son-in-law. She was totally giving her 100% approval, observing how V and I just got along so well, so quickly. Now, I will again just emphasize, set boundaries. If they want to bring their cousin, their sister, their mom, whatever, and you're looking for a relationship, that is totally fine. It'll make them feel comfortable. It'll make them feel safe. The answer is yes. However, one Filipina that I chatted with, we agreed that we would meet the following day at the Seaside Mall over there on the south end of Cebu City. And at first it was going to be the two of us. But within less than 24 hours, I kept getting message after message. First it was, can I bring my sister along? And I said, yeah, that's fine. But then came another message like a couple hours later. Well, what if I bring one sister, the other sister's going to be jealous. So can I bring both my sisters? And I said, well, I really wanted to get to know you. I want to have private conversation with you. I don't see how we're going to do that with your two sisters there. Now, I would have thought she'd have figured out that means no, but she didn't. So about 6 hours the next day before we were supposed to meet in the late afternoon, now she's saying, well, if you are serious about relationship, my parents want to meet you. And my brothers, and so her brothers and sisters she wanted to invite along. So I said, how many people do you plan to bring with you? She said, is only 8 with parents and my brothers and sisters. And as you can guess, that's when I said, we're done. We're not going to meet. And even then she said, what do you mean we're not going to meet? I said, canceled. I won't be there. I'm not going to entertain your entire family on a first date. That is not going to happen. That is not how I do things. And so I ended it, and I never did bother making the drive out to Seaside Mall because there was no way I was going to get shanghaied into taking an entire family out to some restaurant because that's what they insist on. Don't let yourself get put into that situation. So to recap, if you're just playing around and you want to do that first date with a Filipina, keep it a simple, inexpensive date, because if you go and have a first date and you've already set it up and said, oh, that really nice seafood restaurant? Yeah, let's meet there. Well, as you know can happen, you can meet and within 30 seconds, I don't want anything to do with this woman. She doesn't even look like she looked on her profile. But now you've already committed to this expensive meal. So that's why you keep it at something simple. I mean, even Bose Coffee or Starbucks is a treat for most Filipinas. To get yourself a nice mochaccino or whatever is practically a full day's wage for most Filipinos. So even just Starbucks date is a decent date in the Philippines. And if you're dating with the intent of really getting to know and to some degree proving yourself, then don't worry about them inviting one other person. Again, it could be an aunt, a sister, a cousin, a roommate, the mother, but not the whole family.